And so, it begins. Dark were the skies and chill was the wind as the land was covered in a veil of malice. Across the hill did ride a dread army of the night, cloaked in mist and fog, prepared to rain down death and destruction upon the land. And the people did crowd for a savior, a noble soul to save them from their impending demise. Just as it seemed all was lost, in strode a mighty hero, clad in shivering metal from head to toe. Wielding a terrible broadsword, he did cleave his foes in two, smashing their ranks asunder with righteous fury. And when the day was done and the enemy strewn across the fields in pieces, the people did turn to the warrior and say, "We shall name this day in your honor. Speak unto us your wisdom." The warrior said one word that day: epic.
One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now. Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. The date today is the 12th of November, I believe, 2010. It's 8 p.m. in the British Isles. People get confused by the concept of summertime. Every year this happens, by the way. Yep, I taught about time zones at summertime and why we put our clocks forward and back in junior school when I was 9. What do they teach you at school these days? I'm confused. Why is it a different time? Oh, man. Come on, please. 8 p.m. GMT now. It is 3 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States. And I believe it is also midday Pacific. It's also 9 p.m. Central European time. This is Blue Please. You are listening live. Maybe you're not. If you are not, then you're doing it wrong. This is the time it's on every week. You should be coming here. First, an apology. I have to apologize for not being on last week. Sadly, the whole surgery thing does take it out of me. I wasn't really supposed to do anything strenuous with my voice for 2 weeks. I ignored them, as you could probably notice. However, the medication I was taking was making me quite drowsy. I will try and do the show today. I think I'm okay, but I can't be certain. We shall see, anyway. I haven't done anything live since my surgery, so yeah. Just bear that in mind. If I do have to go off early, that'll be why. It'll mostly be because I'm probably torrenting blood from my nose and maybe mouth. Oh, well, whatever. There's also a reason I'm not on camp today for that very reason. Hey, I'm sneezing blood, guys. Isn't this awesome? Have a look at this. I'm thinking no. Oh, well. What have I got coming up for the show today? Well, I'd like to tell you about the fact that heroic raiding is now available for testing. I'm not going to spend too long going on to a rant and a rave about the fact that they're putting out freaking everything for testing beforehand, but I do want to talk about raiding as a repetitious piece of content and how exactly you can keep it entertaining for yourself, doing it week in, week out, and what Blizzard can do to make it entertaining week in, week out. Because it is the content you're going to be spending the majority of your time of when you hit max level, unless you are a PvPer or one of those dirty, sleazy alt-rolling types. Also, rated battlegrounds. Are they any good? Well, I can talk to you about those. I like to talk to you about the concept of battlegrounds as a tactical and strategic exercise, as opposed to, well, herding kittens, which is what happens when you go into a pubby battleground. And if you don't believe me, well, you're basically wrong. Aside from that, I'm going to start by talking about a movie. And yeah, I know it's not WoW related. If you don't like it, switch off for the next 15 minutes. Or skip forward if you're listening to the podcast. I don't care. It's Blue Please, and this particular movie has blue lights in it. So I'm going to talk about it. It's bad. It's really, really, really bad. I need to spend some time expressing to you just how bad it is. So, for no apparent reason, we're doing a movie review to start off the show. Then we'll do the mail time. And, of course, Cataclysm questions and answers. The end of the show. That sounds like a plan to me. Send them in to themurloc@gmail.com. That is themurloc@gmail.com. That's where you need to go for it. Oh, let me tell you how bad Skyline is. First, let me tell you about me as a person when it comes to watching movies. So, I've got a Cineworld Unlimited card, so I can watch any movie anytime. I don't pay for it. It's a fixed monthly fee, which is very easy to get your money's worth out of. The cinema's about 5 minutes walk away from my house, so there you go. I like basically almost every movie there is. I can derive some kind of enjoyment out of it because I really enjoy watching movies, particularly in the cinema. I like the big screen experience. I like the big sound experience. I like everything there is to like about the cinema. I'm very fortunate to have a very good cinema next to me, and I can't remember the last time we ever had problems in it. We don't have screaming kids, people screwing around on mobile phones or anything like that. It just doesn't happen. We have a really good cinema with a lot of, it's got a lot of screens, very good quality screens, things like that. So I go to the movies when I'm feeling like it. If I've got a long encode going on, for instance, and I can't do anything on my computer, I just go to the movies for a couple of hours. Or if I'm just bored, or if I'm feeling like chilling out, I'll go to the movies. It's good to get away from the computer, go do something else, etc., etc. Now, just to give you context for how few movies I actually dislike, I can only think of about 5 in my life that I have disliked. They are, in no particular order, The Cable Guy, Dr. Dolittle, the Eddie Murphy version, the new remake of Phantom of the Opera, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Paper Tigers, which was a really, really bad DVD that I bought for 50 pence from a market stall one day with the subtitle American Samurai, which I didn't make any sense because it was all about the freaking triads and not about the Yakuza. Anyway, those are, I think, the 5 movies that I've ever watched and really disliked. Actually, no, there's 6. Epic Movie. Epic Movie was really bad as well. So yeah, 6. 6 movies total that I've hated in my entire life. Some people might say, well, you've forgotten Twilight, but no, because I watched it with riff tracks on, so for me it was hilarious. I pity anyone that had to watch it without. Right. So, those were the ones that I hated. Everything else, I've at least, actually gotten my enough enjoyment out of to justify sitting there and watching it. However, I'm going to have to add a 7th movie to my list of ones that I dislike. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Skyline. So I like dumb action movies. I like dumb anything. I got enjoyment out of a recent movie called Jonah Hex, which, let me see what we got on Rotten Tomatoes, because I think on Metacritic it was about 29. Let's go on... I can't even... Rotten Tomatoes. Rotten Tomatoes. Search Rotten Tomatoes for Jonah Hex. Jonah Hex on Rotten Tomatoes got... come on. 13%. 13! That's how bad it was on Rotten Tomatoes. Average rating of 3.4 out of 10. 28% of the audience liked it. As in, it is rated absolutely abysmal, and yet I got more enjoyment out of that movie by a very significant margin than I did out of Skyline. So, yeah. Let me tell you why Skyline is terrible. So, it's very, very difficult to get an alien apocalypse movie wrong. It's really hard. I mean, all you need is some special effects, some cool fighting scenes, some creepy or scary aliens, and maybe a little bit of heroism for good measure. Or if you're going the other direction, whereby everyone just dies, and resistance is futile, etc., etc., you bring in either some human drama or some genuinely awesome destruction. So, Skyline doesn't have any of that. You'd think it does, based on the trailer, but all of the really cool special effects are in the trailer. That's it. The vast majority of the actual movie is spent inside a hotel penthouse. For no reason. Now, I went and did a bit of research and tried to figure out exactly why about 90% of this movie was spent inside one freaking room. And as it turns out, it was because it was a very limited budget. It was only a 20 million budget. And apparently that's the reason for having no worthwhile acting of any description, no worthwhile script writing of any description, a complete blue balls ending that answered nothing and was a complete waste of time. They had one good actor. One single good actor in that entire film, and he was a television actor from Dexter. You know, Angel, the freaking detective from Dexter, he's in it. But he's not in it for all that long. I guess that was the biggest budget actor they can actually afford. Their lead actor has not been in anything good except for one episode of The West Wing, where he played a tiny bit part. Every other movie he's been in has been awful, according to IMDb and everything else. So, that didn't really help. Let's be honest. Let's just get the acting for a second, because you'd think if everyone was being absolutely slaughtered and abducted and killed around you and your entire world was falling in on itself, especially, I might add, when your city, and of course this has minor spoilers, as you will imagine. If you don't want to hear the spoilers, then just tune out. Warning has been given. Your city gets nuked. Yeah? Nuked! Like, they drop a freaking nuke on the aliens, obviously, because every single big alien apocalypse movie you ever see involves the use of nuclear weapons, because of course they've got to break that out. But, they don't even try anything else. They just go in with nuclear weapons. Let's not even get started to the fact that it's launched by a B-2 bomber that's doing loop-the-loops and corkscrews in a more agile manner than a freaking F-22. It's ridiculous. It is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Oh, wow. Like, just doing spins and loops with this dramatic music playing in the background. You know the kind, when the American military is involved in everything. Like, dramatic trumpets, like, yeah, save the day. It's like, this is not a freaking X-Wing. Seriously, it's a B-2 stealth bomber. You can't do that. It would fall apart. Let's not even mention the fact it's got a bloody rocket booster on the back, of course, because people don't understand jet aircraft unless they have massive, great afterburners behind them. But anyway, we're not going into this particular movie thinking it's realistic, are we? No, we're not. We wanted to see some good alien abduction and some explosions. The air battle scene lasts about 50 seconds. That's it. Because that's all they can afford. They've got no budget for this thing, and yet they spent it all on the special effects for the aliens, which of course they reused over and over and over again. There's only about 2 alien types because they couldn't afford to animate anything else. It's just so silly. It's got no plot at all. They tried to make it very, very clever. They tried to do the whole 15 hours earlier thing, but that entire section could just go, because it serves no purpose. At all. Like, you'd think it would serve a purpose for establishing a link and a connection to the characters, right? So you feel like, oh, well, I feel some connection to this character, I feel some empathy for this character when they're going through this horrible thing. You don't feel any empathy for these guys at all, because they're completely, totally flat. They have no defining characteristics at all. Any one at all. To the point, I might add, where the 2 lead characters have to have some ridiculous thing happen to them in order for them to be remotely memorable in any way. So the lead male character somehow gets this sort of extra strength from absorbing some alien energy or something, which is good because before that he was really boring. Not that he really gets a chance to use it, because there's barely any actual combat in the movie. And the only defining characteristic of the female lead is that she's a few weeks pregnant. That's the only thing. Otherwise, there is no defining characteristic about this. And let's not even get onto the supporting characters. This is amazing rap star guy who is characterized by the fact that he is in the penthouse that they spend 90% of the movie in, and at one point cheats on his wife for his personal assistant, which of course doesn't establish anything in the movie. Yes, that's the guy from Scrubs, by the way. It doesn't matter. You don't feel anything for any of the characters because there's just nothing about them. So that entire half an hour doesn't need to be there. It starts with the alien invasion, then cuts back about 15 hours. Half an hour of the movie wasted with this pointless crap, and then it cuts back to where it was in the first place. Oh, but of course, because those 30 minutes were for one reason. Actually, 2 reasons. The first one, to give an explanation as to why they're in the penthouse in the first place that they spent 90% of the bloody movie in. And second, to introduce one of the biggest contrivances I've ever seen, which is a telescope. Yeah, this big, sodding, massive digital telescope that this guy just happens to have. I've heard, by the way, that rap stars are big into digital telescopes, especially when they're connected to their fat, flat-screen televisions plugged into the frickin' wall. So during the party, they're using this telescope to spy on people in other apartments. And it's the most puerile, immature thing ever. And they You know, a nice bit of homophobia involved in it as well, because they spy on someone who's blatantly getting oral sex from someone, and then it pans in and you see that it's from a man, and, like, everyone's shocked and appalled. It's like, yeah, awesome, thanks for reminding me that America is completely homophobic. Whatever. So this contrivance is used throughout the movie, of course, because he has a telescope linked into this giant freaking plasma screen, so they can use it to look out the window without being spotted by the thing. And that's what half of the scenes outside are done on the screen right there. They're actually shown on the screen. And I assume that's the excuse they have for these narrow angle views, so they don't have to spend any more money on special effects. If it actually made any sense, like, let's just say it was low budget, like Diary of the Dead, which isn't even that good a movie. That was mostly shot on the handycams, for the sole reason of it was part of the plot. It was like a first-hand account of a zombie invasion, stuff like that. It was really good. This serves no purpose at all. So, there's no combat. You feel no connection with the characters at all. Let's not even get into the lines and ridiculous like that. You know, this much, it's just something we've got to do, blah, 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 nonsense that is always happening in all of it. That the characters barely show any emotion. They're hardly terrified, considering what is actually happening. They're more concerned about being stuck in a freaking penthouse 20 stories in the air in this bloody hotel. And then the ending, massive spoilers I might add. So, nothing works, yeah? They nuke the thing. This is the only impressive scene of the movie. It's not even that impressive because you don't see most of it because there's big white flash. So they nuke one of the big alien spaceships. It crashes into the ground and then it starts regenerating. You're like, oh god, it failed. Of course it failed, because that's exactly what happened in frickin' Independence Day. It's identical to what happened in frickin' Independence Day, except this time it crashes and then gets back up again. Blah, blah, blah. You know, there's a little bit of military fight. There's barely any. You want to know how many army dudes are actually in this? 4. Yeah? They deploy 4 soldiers. That's it. That's all they do. 4 soldiers with Barrett sniper rifles on the roof, which do absolutely nothing, I might add. I think there's a rocket launcher involved in it as well at some point, but it's a total waste of time. Of course, the main character has more luck with a fire axe than the military do with Barrett 50 cals and a bloody rocket launcher, because that's just the way movies like this go. At the end, they get sucked into the spaceship anyway. You know, there's no save for them whatsoever. You know, they're screwed, blah, 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 and of course you see them kissing as they go up, and apparently these aliens are eating brains, yeah? There's no explanation as to the reason the aliens are here or whatever. They seem to take brains and put them in other bodies, and that's about it. And they don't eat the brains of the female character because the contrivance says she's pregnant. They don't want to do that, so they send it to a secondary chamber. They eat the brain of the male character, whose brain is then put into some kind of robot thing, who then comes and, quote, saves her and starts fighting off the aliens, yeah? And that's it. It ends there. There's no cool fight. You don't get to see any of the fighting. It's all done in still images in the credits because they couldn't afford it. Oh, wow. You know what? If you hadn't spent so much money on the bloody advertising budget, covered every cinema in trailers and every site in ads, maybe you could have afforded to make a decent movie. Oh, it's the worst movie I've seen this year. It is so very, very, very bad. How do you screw up a movie like that? How? It's as bad as those sci-fi original movies. Actually, you know what? I'd rather watch Mega Shark versus Giant Octopus than this piece of crap. Ah, please. You know, maybe if they also hadn't flattened a Porsche at one point, they would have afforded a decent scriptwriter. Like, the Porsche gets flattened by the alien. Okay, so that was, what, $100,000 you just threw away on this freaking Porsche. That's assuming you didn't have to do any retakes. God, filmmakers waste money on the stupidest crap these days. And on the plus side, the aliens look really cool. Well, then that's about it. And, you know, the whole idea, at least at the start, that this blue light sort of takes control of you, then sucks you up, is kind of neat. And there's this one scene where they're sucking people up, and it's just like thousands of people flying through the air, but that's for about 10 seconds. And you don't see any of that for the rest of it. Now, the film never progresses at any point. They invade, they suck people up, and they do that for about 3 days, and then the guys at the end sort of die, and that's it. Wow. The film's a bloody disgrace, folks. Seriously, avoid Skyline at all possible costs. There are so many movies I would suggest watching that aren't Skyline. The special effects don't even save it, because of course you don't get to see enough of them. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. It really does. My name's Total Biscuit. I'll be back right after this with a mailbag. I'm going to play something by Volbeat. This goes by the name of Fallen. I'll be right back after this. Enjoy.